teenyinche adabukan tezi tasuninda bari midabukan tezi yodanju kabadu onnen teenyinche nazura mulatu alla sharmeti kalama jartinal keta barukan tezi ya kalama jartinal keta barukan tezi amina sigabe isiati meti angalo kadabe simale dawiti edalle hiramene iyadu kantiti jarrasu jalana sirrana kumeki kalama jartinda keta barukan titi kalama jartinda keta barukan titi Jabdu zikima daliti ya igi mirar kanaputi jalanti kantiti yana musa siti betta dunguna bangkiti jiru sindi badu ana jalallo titi kalama jartinda keta baru kantiti ya kalama jartinda keta baru kantiti amina sigabe isi atimeti angalo dadabe simale tawiti edalle hiramne iyadu kantiti jarrasu jalala sirrana kumeki kalama jartinda keta baru kantiti ya kalama jartinda keta baru kantiti
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our second Wasanii Tunajisort webinar, which will focus on digital distribution and monetization. My name is Judy Ogana. I'm with the UNESCO Culture Program at the Regional Office for Eastern Africa, and I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of the organizers of this program and this series. The series is spearheaded by the Creative Economy Working Group, Alliance Française, the Godin Arts Center, Twaweza Communications, and UNESCO, in partnership with the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage and the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO. This Wasanii Tunajisort webinar today is the second of this series, following the first one held in October on copyright in Kenya, with copyright experts Liz Lenjo and Catherine Mujomba. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to look up the discussion at the Alliance Française YouTube web pages. This series of talks are as a result of recommendations made through the Resilient Kenya discussions that were held in May, June, and July this year, which aimed to enable strategic reflection, consolidation of thoughts and ideas on the impact of COVID-19 on the creative economy sector, while charting a way forward towards the sector's resilience. One of the recommendations was to enhance learning for practitioners in the creative sector and to contribute to continuous development and knowledge sharing among and between creatives, for practical insights and exchanges. So this webinar will be the last one that we will host this year, but we'll be sure to communicate to you on the themes and the dates of the next one early next year in 2021. So let me first also take an opportunity to thank Abdi Gero and the Chalbi Desert Groove from Massabit for the music you were just listening to in the beginning of this webinar, and Anne Gishuki for the painting displayed here, as well as the poster for this event. We also want to thank all the attendees who have logged into this conversation so far today, and the ones who will of course join later on and also on YouTube later. So without much further ado, allow me to introduce Angela Washuka, who will be our very distinguished moderator for this discussion today, and will also introduce our expert panelists. Angela Washuka is co-founder of Book Bank, which is an organization driving restoration and programming for some of Nairobi's most iconic public libraries. She's a founding member of the Creative Economy Working Group and was previously an Arts Management Fellow at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Washuka is a 2019-2020 Africa Leader at the Obama Foundation and is publisher at Bank Books. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Washuka to introduce our panelists and lead us through this conversation today. Karibu sana, Washuka.
Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Judy. And thank you to you all who are joining us from wherever you may be. I know that you're super, super keen to listen to what our panelists have to say today. I'm excited to be speaking to all of them. So I would like to jump right in. So this afternoon, we'll be speaking with Wilfred Kiumi, Patricia Kihoro, and George Gashui, who's also known as Poji. I'm not sure what his M-Pesa name is, but one amongst those two is the real one. And we will start with Wilfred. Wilfred is the founding director of African Digital Media Group, ADMG, which is actually made up of three entities. There's an institute, there's a foundation, and there are also studios. He has over 20 years experience in the East African film and television industry, and currently runs ADMS, so the studios, where he heads up sales, distribution, marketing, and production at a company that's really dedicated to exporting African content to a global audience from the London office. So the studios have recently launched VumiCentro.com, which is a vendor-driven multimedia platform serving clients in Africa and the diaspora. And so we'll be talking to Wilfred quite a lot about that particular VumiCentro angle and how it relates to our conversation today about distribution and monetization. He also holds a master's in film distribution and marketing from Birmingham City University in the UK. Karibu sana, Wilfred. We will then be speaking with Patricia Kihoro, who will be talking about content distribution, monetization, paid partnerships, and influencer marketing. I doubt many of you actually need me to make an introduction to Patricia. She's a very well-known figure on our internets, especially. So she's a Kenyan singer. She's also an actress. She's a radio presenter. She's an event host. She's a moderator, a digital content curator, and also an improv comedian. And I have seen this, who loves coffee, travel, music, performance, working out daily, riding around Nairobi on her scooter, and most of all, laughter. So what she mostly shares about online is her life and all the things she encounters as she journeys through. And that includes the brands that she interacts with on her day-to-day basis. And she also loves to celebrate African brands, innovators, art and culture, and with a very kind of strong bias towards music. So if you look at her social media platform, she's showcasing her singing, her acting, photography, people, travel, festivals, being on stage, entertaining, and making people laugh until everyone collapses in happy tears. She aims to have her audiences leave her platforms in good spirits and with positive energy, having learned something new. Karibu sana, Patricia, and we're really looking forward to talking to you. And finally, our third panelist is Poji, George Gashui, who works in music distribution and monetization, and we'll be talking about that. He's a creative entrepreneur. He's trained in finance and information systems, which he couples with a wealth of marketing experience within the African continent and a key passion to secure and grow a valuable future for the youth of the region. He has over 12 years experience in events and entertainment, with recognition and an award in event management from Diageo Marketing in 2011, and also specializing in talent, specifically artists and DJ management and entertainment marketing in the region. He's also the co-founder of MOOC Africa, which is a social commerce platform that I know a lot of us have used, that is growing the creative economy in East Africa. It was launched in Kenya 5 years ago and now serves 2,000 small to medium merchants across 3 markets, and that's in Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. And these tend to be musicians, event organizers, and content creators who are mostly based between 18 and 35, and who use the platform to monetize their very lucrative craft, which is evidenced through the over $1 million in transactions that they transact every year. Karibuni sana, welcome, Koji. So we have a very distinguished panel this afternoon, and I know that the topic is monetization and distribution, and that's something that a lot of our audiences will really be looking to dig into your own personal experiences and what you're doing in terms of the platforms that you're working with and working for. And I'd like to dig right in. The order that we're going to do it in is we'll have a discussion first with Wilfred, and that will be followed by one with Patricia, and then finally with Poji. So Wilfred, we want to dig right in, find out as much as we can by you giving us an overview of Vumi Central, which is very, very new and fresh, and also the Africa Digital Media Group and the kind of work that you do there that relates to the topic that we're discussing, which is distribution and monetizing.
Great, thank you, Mashuka, for that intro. Just quickly, I mean, in terms of our thought and why we wanted to launch this platform is that we've been involved with training for the last 9 years. I've been in the industry for about 20 years plus. So for me and every other filmmaker or content creator, their issues were always about how do we monetize the content that they create. Everyone is very passionate, but then how do they get the back? And how do they connect with customers? So after deliberating for a while, I really wanted to get into this sector, and I took off and to exactly learn how to do that or distribute, because I think it's a very, it's a black hole, and no one was willing to teach or give the secrets to the trade. Mm-hmm. But then again, moving forward is that after going through the training, it was very clear that the model that the rest of the world uses might not work in our region, because it's very, so if it's movies, it's very theatrically driven in terms of the numbers, box office, yeah? So how do we, monetize with box office when we don't have cinemas? So the trick was, okay, we have to think about a solution that can be easily accessible on mobile, but also secure enough for people to trust, and for content creators to be able to trust and use it regularly as vendors. So what we did is that we created a platform that is a vendor-driven platform. It's not only a film or video platform. So it actually has 4 different hubs. Vumi is a Swahili word, which means word on the street, or what the rumor. So Vumi is basically an entertainment platform, mm-hmm. which will carry the best of world cinema, television, music, books, even gaming, with an emphasis to African content. So currently we've launched one of the hubs, which is now Watch. So you'll find the link as watch.vumicentral.com. And this will host movies, TV content, kids content. Currently, we're even able to do monetization of live streams. So you can actually buy a ticket. So let's say a boxing match was happening somewhere, or football match. We can actually monetize that single event through the platform. And so we just launched in July. We had big plans. We wanted to launch very early during Kalasha in around March. So we did a soft launch in Balinale. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and we had to move everything, and of course now do a very gradual launch. So we've gradually been onboarding content. We have about 20 movies a TV series, and some one animation kids content. So we wanted to see how the platform works. And for a while now we've been testing that, and I think we are very confident that if it's a TV series, you're able to watch all the episodes without any hitch. So that works fine. The way it works is that it's vendor driven. So you as a content creator decide the length, or the length that you want to host the film or the TV show that on a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely non-exclusive. So you can have it, you can have your content on other platforms as well. But what we did is that we have 3 tiers. So we have what we call transactional VOD. We have advertising driven, or AVOD, and then we have subscription. So we haven't launched subscription yet, but we are currently testing out the AVOD, which the way it works out is just like YouTube. The ads come automatically, and they are geared, they are targeted to whoever is watching. So the ad that you watch is not the same as I would watch. So it all uses technology. But the one thing that is very primary to the platform is that we've made sure that we're using what we call a DRM, which is like a digital rights management, which makes sure that your content is free of piracy. If you download that film, it's completely scrambled. You cannot watch it on anywhere else. So as I said, we now under TVOD we have premium, which is basically means that you can rent a film or buy a film to watch on the platform. You cannot watch it outside of the platform. We have bigger plans to roll out the native apps, but for now we're only on the web. But we should be launching what we call a progressive web app, which means you don't have to download an app. It actually looks like an app on your phone on the home screen, but it's not an app. And once you click, you go directly to the platform, and it will operate like an app. So that will be launching sometime later this month.
So if I get this correctly, Wilfred, and congratulations for launching in a year that's been very difficult for most people, and also in terms of just movement of content, figuring new models out. So it's very good that you guys have been able to do this and test it over the past few months. Now, if I'm a content producer, let's say I'm a filmmaker, what you're essentially saying is that I post my content on your platform and have various ways in which I can monetize this. Is that correct?
Correct. So right now, the premium window is operational, and we have a few movies that we are actually renting out on the platform. So you rent out, you pay through M-Pesa or a Visa card. And the other thing is also not just a Kenyan platform. It's actually available across Africa. The payment gateway we are using allows you to pay to receive payments in over 19 countries across Africa. So someone in Nigeria can watch your film. Actually, what's really holding us back is marketing and pushing in terms of that. Otherwise, it works as it should. So if you have a short film, we have a few short films already, and they've been doing quite well. And so you decide the pricing. We can guide you in terms of the pricing, but then you decide how much you want to charge for your work. And we really, we can work on a marketing campaign together, like in terms of pushing, because we also believe that it's not enough to publish your work online without any noise making. Because we know, like Netflix, there were movies that were on Netflix more than 2 years ago, but people never knew them, never knew about them. So it's really about marketing. How much noise are you able to make about that, the content that you put out there? Yeah.
The other thing that I find really interesting about your model, Wilfred, is of course, there's a lot of experience that Vumi Centro is carrying over from having taught these skills. There are all these creative courses at ADMI that have been offered for some time now. And there's been a big conversation in the creative sector about where do you go to get certified skills that are transferable to like everyday work in the creative sector. So for a long time, there was always this feeling of you kind of learn on the job, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, having been someone who set up an institute like that has 3 different arms, this is with African Digital Media, What compelled you? What were you seeing in the market that compelled you that Vumi Centro is something that is necessary? What are you seeing in terms of film distribution in the region, in terms of audiences, in terms of platforms, in terms of content, and even the potential market size?
So I think the one thing that people need to realize is that Kenya is a very small market. You don't have more than 200,000 people who come to your cinema. But then when you make it available like on mobile, then now you're able to access more than 10 million people who are able to access. Safaricom currently has about more than 20 million subscribers. Half of those people use smartphones. So it's really getting to a point where we are now able to partner with such a customer base, and your content grows, and you can do that across Africa. Then you now can see we're able to get to 1 billion people easily. But if we do the traditional way, where you're thinking, you can only distribute through theater, then you're reaching a very small target audience. But then, even in terms of when you're creating the content, even globally, even in the US, which is the biggest market for film, they find that when you make a film domestically, doesn't sell as much as when you now open it up to the other international markets. So it's really important for you to understand, yes, I'm making a film about Kenya, about a Kenyan character, set in Kenya. The language is local because you want your performers as comfortable as possible. And then now you make sure that your production values are as good as any other international content, so that they can pair up with each other. And once you tick those boxes, it's very easy for your content to get onto Amazon, Netflix, and we've seen it recently. So it's very easy. All you need to do is get to those levels. But then it doesn't have to mean that you have to make your film in English. No, we've been watching movies in Spanish and Russian and whatever. So it's really important for people to understand the market that they want to reach out to and how far they want the movie to travel. That tells you how to position your film from the script stage, and also in terms of genre and even the language, the quality that you want to shoot on. That directly now relates also to your budget and the elements that you want in your story. So once you start, so people need to first do their research first, decide where they want to position their film. Even and I always say the easiest way is to do comparable films. You go on to IMDb, you look at comparable films that you want. You compare your story or film and look and style to look at how far they were able to sell in terms of markets. Then from there work backwards and say, this is what I want to achieve. So how can I get to that level? Then now your film. If it doesn't sell in locally, domestically, then you're able to also export it as well internationally.
Thank you, Wilfred. And I know you had mentioned just previously that a kind of area that you're still working on is marketing. And there's actually a question from the floor on our chat here from Joy Mboya asking if you could share some strategies that you're considering for marketing.
Okay, so for marketing, usually what you do is that you start from doing a marketing report. You have a film or a marketing strategy. You decide, okay, this is the film that I have. Be honest enough to do what we call like a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths of the films? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities that you see? Once you do that, you start to identify where the audiences are. How do you reach them? Now, which channels do you use? Do you use social? Do you decide to distribute your film in social halls across the country? So once you do that analysis, then you're able now to say, these are my weaknesses, but then how can I use that to my advantage and turn them into opportunities? And then, of course, you need to think about what we call owned media. Owned media is where you start creating your own from day one, from development stage, BTS, photos, storytelling about your film, because that will also come very handy when you're trying now to market that film. Then, of course, you need bought media where you buy some slots. If you can afford, newspaper, TV, TV advertising. But the one area that people
Oh, I think we may have lost Wilfred. Seems to be a little connection hitch going on there. We'll jump back into the conversation with Wilfred as soon as he's back on. But in the meantime, if you do have questions for Wilfred to do with Vumi and to do with film distribution, please make sure that you're sharing those on the chat box wherever you're watching from. So you can comment if you're on YouTube. And of course, if you're on this call itself, just post your question on the chat. And we'll pick up the conversation with Wilfred when we can. I see that he's back on. Habari?
Hi, sorry, I think we got lost somewhere.
No worries about that. The internet gremlins did their thing. So I think we were still on the conversation about marketing and strategies.
Yes. You need to think about owned media, and media where you do a lot of PR publicity. The best thing actually is to talk to like a publicist who is able to get you, or a PR company, a PR specialist who is able to position your story along, on different media stations. Think about radio, all the channels. I think once you do the SWOT analysis, you're now able to think backwards and say, okay, this is where the audiences are. They're at Capital FM, they're at Kiss FM. Who do I know there? Is there a PR guy who can position me, to do like a talk there or whatever? So those are earned media. Owned media is where you now do your own interviews that you publish on your YouTube channel, social media as well. And then of course you can now buy some media as well on social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook. So that way you're also able to give it a push. The whole idea is to create what we call a FOMO, fear of missing out. There's this movie, Softy is loud, is of how they are pushing it. Yeah, it makes you feel like I want to go and watch Softy. Yeah, and by the way, coming on to Vumi this month. Yeah, so those who missed out in the theaters are also able to catch it on digital.
That segues into my next question, which is coming in from the floor, which was specifically, are there any plans to get Softy on the platform? But I will also expand that question to include what sort of new narratives are you seeing people demanding or hungering for? Are we wanting to see more fiction and feature films? Are we wanting to see more documentaries? Are we wanting to see more kids content? So in your experience since July with your platform, what sort of content would you say, also based on this question about when you're putting Softy on, what's really capturing people's interests?
People want to see content that they relate to. So in the Kenyan audience, a very good or a very easy way of understanding the Kenyan audience is visiting one of the exhibitors or cinema exhibitors, just having a casual conversation with them. They will tell you that action films, comedy, action comedy and adventure films do the best in Kenya or in the region actually. So anytime you have, and that tells you, you've seen the rave around 46. Yeah, and if they actually had taken it to theatrical fast,
when you could have Kenya seen the same into the Netflix world. Yes.
Exactly, but if they had also taken advantage of theatrical, it actually fits in very well with the Kenyan audience in terms of their likes, right? Because even platforms, even Netflix or any other platform, they want content that is valuable that the audience wants to watch it. So if you had the, Softie has been running in the theaters for quite a while. Unfortunately, someone in Lodwar, Nakuru is not able to watch it because they don't have a cinema there. And because we only have about 50 cinemas around the country. So it's impossible for them to be able to, but then they have that urge and need to watch it.
Oh, we have a time freeze again, I'm afraid. Okay, well, as you had.
So it's really about the best opportunities and the best windows that you can. Oh no, sorry.
No, there you are. Now we have you back.
Sorry. Maybe I should change locations.
No, go on, please.
Yeah, so I was saying it's really about understanding the audience, but also even as you make that film, knowing that do you want to attract the local audience or an international audience? And if it's an international, they probably might not be very interested in action film from Africa, to be honest. Yeah, so they're looking for art house type of films. They want to escape. Like Europe right now is, the rest of the world is going through winter. So they don't come out of the houses, they don't travel, they don't, have a lot of outdoor activities. So they want to actually escape. So the movie they want, in terms of how you shoot it, they actually want to experience a different culture. Those are the kind of films that will sell internationally.
Okay. Thank you for those insights, Wilfred. Action, comedy, adventure films. I did not know that.
For local audiences.
The other day I was looking at some statistics about Softie and its audience figures. I think it was in about maybe a 3-week span. And it was very encouraging to see that so many people were going out, and it does show that there's definitely a hunger for content also from home, content from elsewhere.
Yeah, and also Softie helped. What helped Softie is that it also did a festival run first before coming into the theater. So the more awards you win, the more people want to see. Like when you see those golden on your poster or your movie, you accept that so how valuable your content is. So you start crafting that strategy very early on. If you think the movie will do at the festival circuit first, then do that. Of course, it means holding. You have a time where you're not making anything from the movie because it's doing festival, but it's winning awards that will be other places and other platforms.
Okay. Asante sana, Wilfred. We will come back because I'm sure there are also a number of questions from the floor.
Cool.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights about especially your new platform. I want to switch gears now and invite Patricia Kihoro to come and talk to us about her world and her work. Hi, Patricia.
Hello.
Karibu tena.
Asante sana, nimeshukuru sana.
How is it going?
It's going well. Today was a bit of a hectic day because I just launched a brand and we were doing our PR drops. So I've been all over Nairobi dropping them off. And I got back just in time for this. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm very grateful.
Thank you for making the time. Were you doing that on your scooter?
Hey, wow. I wish, but I had like a bunch of boxes. So these are our PR boxes, and we had like bottles of wine in them and some chutneys and things. So lots of glass products, and they wouldn't have fit on the scooter. So
speaking of deliveries and launching brands and new initiatives, my first question for you, Patricia, is about the ecology of the world that you exist in, where you do your work. You have so much experience of working with brands and, being an influencer also for some brands, doing some influencer marketing. Could you talk to us, please, about what the ecology of your work looks like? And in relation, of course, to the conversation that we're having about distribution and monetizing.
Right. So I think if I even just go back to how I got into this thing and how everything then connects, I came onto the platforms because I'm an early adopter. When Instagram launched, I was on it. When Facebook launched, I was on it. Even before that, when High Five launched, I was on it. MySpace, I was on it. Tumblr, I was on it. I'm the kind of person who, at a certain time in my life, I just felt like these platforms were so exciting because you got to connect with people from all over the world. Some strangers, some people that you knew, but it was a good way to sort of connect and share whatever you were going through. And so over the years, in sharing some of my work, some of my life, some of my family and friends, the numbers grew and it sort of became interconnected with the work that I do. So as an actress, when I'm on set or when I'm shooting a film or talking about something that you can watch, sharing that on my platforms was very interesting for people to see. If I'm performing at a concert and I had somebody record the performances and then I upload them onto YouTube, they kind of just interconnected because people watching your performances on YouTube will then translate into people coming for your gigs the next time because they get to see
Right.
what they missed if they didn't show up. And at that time, I even remember the first 3 videos I uploaded on my YouTube channel were performances at an event that was hosted by the radio station that I was working at. So it kind of all just interconnected and it became a very seamless way to sort of share and promote the things that I was doing. So it wasn't it wasn't a hard connection to make, And I think the first time I was approached to be paid for endorsing a brand on my platforms was back in 2014, I think, when Talia and I used to do this thing called Video Chronicles every Friday.
Wow, so 6 years ago.
Yes, yes. Every Friday there was at noon we would do a bulletin of lifestyle news because at the time I was a news anchor at Homeboys Radio. And for the entertainment news, it was a lot more fun. The music was playing. I would get into the studio maybe 5 minutes to time and we would dance to whatever was playing. And one day somebody decided to record us dancing and Talia posted it on her Instagram page. And then it became a thing because people really enjoyed it. And every Friday they knew to expect Patricia and Talia or Panye and Tanye dancing to new music, something exciting. So it even became, I remember somebody reached out and asked if we could talk about a detergent as we were dancing because of a song whose lyrics we had kind of flipped and used their brand name in the song. We didn't do it because we felt like the rate was too low at the time, even though we didn't even know what the rates were. But we were like, okay, if they've offered this, let's ask for double. We see if they'll say yes. And they didn't, but it was fine. But then after that, I remember then being reached out to by a banking institution that at the time wanted me to talk about my relationship with money on my blog. I used to have a blog called patriciakihoro.com, and they wanted me to speak about my relationship with money and saving for 6 months. So every month they just wanted a blog and a tweet promoting the blog post and a Facebook post also talking about the blog post. And for that was my first paid campaign for 6 months. And they paid, if I remember correctly, I think they paid $5,000 for that.
Wow.
And for a first like influencer campaign, for me, I was just like, bruh, I could do this. This is something I could, I mean, they just needed me to be completely myself and talk about saving and my relationship with money. And it was really exciting. It's something that I really enjoyed doing as well because I really loved writing at the time. And from then on, I guess, people will come, they're attracted to the content, so they kind of just congregate around the platforms and brands notice the numbers growing, and so brands start to reach out because of that. And while there's some people who come onto these platforms specifically to work with brands and collaborate in creating content, I'm the kind of person who was on these platforms just sharing about my life and organically just showing a few sides of me, and brands noticed that and asked to work with me. So over the years, it's then grown into something that, my social media platform still remains a place where I go to express myself. Every once in a while, I will speak about brands that are within my lifestyle. And I will get paid for that, but it's something that it has to be a consistent use of a particular brand and something that's sustainable, so that even when a campaign is over, I'm still talking about a brand months later, because it's a realistic thing that I'm doing. Yeah.
So it feels like a very kind of organic tie, Patricia, between anything that you're doing in your life anyway. You know, I like reading this book, so I'll post about this book. Or I like doing activity XYZ, so I'll post about this.
Yeah.
And then from there, you grow an audience of people that, you know, want to keep seeing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So you say 2014 was the first time that you were approached for a campaign, and the figure that you just gave for the subsequent one, which works out to roughly just over 500,000 shillings over a 6-month period. When does that monetization spark happen for you? When does it become like, oh my goodness, actually, this is something I could earn a decent living from?
I think it actually, so the reason I got that gig is because I signed on to a platform called Webfluential. Mm-hmm. And it was like it's like Tinder for brands and influencers. So you, as an influencer, you go and create your profile, put up your pictures, talk about the things that you speak about, and then brands do the same. And then, you know, when brands are looking for influencers for campaigns, they sort of just swipe through and look at people's profiles, and vice versa. As an influencer, you can also swipe through brands and reach out to them if you want to work with them. So this was back in 2014. 2014 is when we were doing the dancing. 2015 is when Barclays, the banking institution, reached out. And it was through this Webfluential platform that I got the gig, because basically what would happen is that somebody would go through, they see somebody that they like, and then they reach out and they say, hey, you've listed for a campaign. And that's when I think the spark happened. Like, I'm joining this platform because it looks like this is something I could do, because it's something I enjoy. I'm doing it anyway. I might as well see if I can get paid for it. So that's when that happened, 2015. Okay. And based off of Webfluential, I've gotten a few campaigns with some really big brands. I think I've done maybe 5 or 6 campaigns just off of Webfluential, because as with time, they also progressed to being very seamless. There's no need to, you know, exchange emails or anything. They're speaking to you through their chat box on the app, and they just say, this is what we need. If you have any questions in the middle of a campaign, you can quickly chat your person, the liaison from Webfluential, and it was pretty good. And you put your rates. You say, I charge this for Instagram, I charge this for Facebook. If you're not sure, they'll tell you people with the same kind of influence are charging this much.
Right. So it's like a Tinder for campaign marketing. I love it.
Exactly.
Which kind of segues actually into my next question, which is for anyone who is curious about getting into the kind of work that Patricia is doing. I suppose that would be a really good place to kind of start, check out Webfluential and see how people market themselves and how you could do the same. Yeah. So far, Patricia, I've followed so many campaigns that you've done. One of my favorite ones recently was the one about Breast Cancer Month. Mm-hmm. And creating awareness around this. What have been some of your favorite campaigns that you've worked on so far?
My favorite campaigns are the ones that just allow me to be myself, because I can be a bit of a goofball. And as a goofball, it means that some of my ideas are not necessarily conventional. They're just allowing me to run around and be my silly self. So working with a brand like Showmax, for instance, is really fun, because they kind of just, there's no brief about you have to do this or you have to say this. They just tell you, this month, this is the new content we're introducing, and go ham, do your thing. Mm-hmm. So Showmax was really amazing. It's a really amazing brand to work with, and they're also long-term partners. So they're the kind of brand that I've been working with for over a year now. And they also are really great in terms of respecting when I need to take a break from creating content. They're very understanding. If they see that I'm struggling, they'll always reach out and be like, is there a way we can help? What are you struggling with? How can we support you? So Showmax has been really amazing in terms of that. I really enjoyed working with Moko as well, because it was fun to just goof around and make funny content that allows me to just to allow my ideas to flourish, because my mind sometimes just does some really funny things.
As we all do. So that sounds like a really kind of great partner to work with.
Yeah.
But I guess the flip side of it is you must have had experiences that are not so great. And there's a question here from Sakwa Kombo, who says, what campaigns haven't gone well for you? And what did you learn from those experiences? Or maybe just give us one example.
For campaigns that haven't gone well, I mean, first of all, I just want to say that from the outside looking in, I realize that it must look like it's very fun and easy. And I get people really speaking about the content that I create and saying that when it comes to influencer marketing, that I'm really great, but I don't feel like I'm a great influencer, because a lot of times I think the things I struggle with are things like procrastination and dealing with like really struggling. Sometimes a creative block will come up, and I'm not the kind of person who will be able to give you a content strategy for a campaign period, because I may not know what content will come to me or what idea will come to me in 2 weeks, for instance. And so the experiences that haven't been so great are those where I felt like the brand didn't really understand how I work. And so the things that they demanded of me in terms of KPIs and dates when you're going to post was so rigid, and there was no room for, oh, sorry, I wasn't feeling up to it this week just because I'm going through this, but can I post next week? It's, why haven't you posted? And the feedback that they're giving as well was not very specific. So if they don't like a particular piece of content, instead of saying, oh, we would like it, or we would prefer if you did this, it was just feedback that's like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling the energy.
Not feeling the content.
I don't know. I'm just do something different. And, the feedback that will, because when I create the content, I think it's great. Like, I'm like, this is, I'm talking about your brand. I'm saying what needs to be said, and I'm going to lead people to buy your product. So when you say you don't know what it is, but just change it, it doesn't really help. And it then made me start to second guess the work that I was doing. I wouldn't say the brands themselves, because I don't think the problem is the brand, maybe just the person running the account or the person tasked with dealing with the influencer who doesn't know how to engage with an influencer or content creator in a way that allows them to still be creatively, free and challenged and excited about the content. Because sometimes with people like that, you find that content then is just generated to meet KPIs. Like, you just do it because you have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those are not the kinds of campaigns that I like. I want to.
I was going to ask you about that, because there does seem to be some kind of tension that emerges at some point between the kind of art of the content creation and I suppose what you're calling the KPIs. And related to that, if I'm someone who's like, this is something I could do, I feel like this is a gig I could get into, what tips would you give to like entry level someone?
I think so. For entry level at the moment, one of the things that a lot of people think makes an influencer is high numbers in terms of followers. But there's so many different scopes of content creators. There's the micro, there's the nano influencers with, not more than 5,000 followers. There's the micro, there's the mid influencers. I've forgotten the name for them. And then there's the macro. Yeah. And, there's the mega influencers with the millions of followers. So there's space for everyone. And I think a lot of times brands are looking to see who has a relationship with their audience that they can then influence in a way that is authentic, in a way that drives engagement with the brand, right? And so don't think that it's all about numbers or all about creating viral content. Most times what a brand needs, there are very many different needs that a brand could have. Sometimes they just want the name out there. They just want people saying, oh, that is Leafy Suburb as a brand, and Leafy Suburb is on everybody's lips. And it's trending so that people have that in their minds. And then now there's influencers who will then come and reinforce that and then say, this is what Leafy Suburb is. In fact, when I used Leafy Suburb, ilibadilisha maisha yangu kwa njia hizi na hizi, yes. And then there's interest and there's information that is being shared. And then there's other influencers with their small microcosm of followers will then reinforce that and show how, okay, so this leafy suburb, guys, is actually quite great. Can you imagine?
Right.
This is how I use this, and it changed my life in this way, and I swear by it. And so those are different tiers and different needs that are being met for a brand or for whatever product. So it doesn't all look the same. So you have to sort of just identify who you want to be when it comes to leading thoughts and opinions in whatever scope you're in. And then sort of building that with consistency, with quality content, because also people think it's very easy, but you know, if I can kind of give myself some room to breathe. So if I'm not as consistent with my content, it's because I'm doing the other things that I do, right? And I'm not primarily on these platforms. I'm not primarily a YouTuber. I'm not primarily an Instagrammer or somebody on Twitter. Primarily the things that I do are offline, you know, as a singer, as a performer, as an actress, music director, hosting events. Those are all offline. And social media for me is something that allows those things to thrive in a bigger way. But if you want to come onto the platforms and you want to be a content creator, then you have to be consistent. You have to constantly learn how to make your content better quality, more engaging. You have to figure out what the best times for you to post are, or what your audience responds to, and then, you know, think about that while still honoring who you are as a creator, being honest, and, you know, maintaining your credibility and authenticity, and honoring yourself, so that you don't find yourself just creating content because so and so created that content and it did well, so I have to do the same. No, there's room for everybody. Like, everyone can be unique in their own way. We get to see new content creators coming up every day who are different from other content creators and who thrive because, you know, whether it's humor that they're tapping into, whether it's relatability that they're tapping into, honesty, authenticity, whether it's just touching stories. Like, you know, if you read this person's post every single day, you will cry tears because emotion. And then someone else will just crack you up because they'll remind you of life.
Funny. Yeah.
Ago, you know, so different people can tap into different things, and there's room for everyone. Yeah.
That's really great to hear. And there are a number of questions actually for you. But we're going to jump over to Poji and then come back to talk to you again during our Q&A. So we can ask you all those questions that people have for you. Okay. Thanks for taking the time to give us a snippet into your world. We're truly grateful. And we'll come back to you when we're done with talking with Mr. Gashui, aka Poji, who has not unmuted himself. And now he has. Karibu, Poji.
Asante sana, how are you?
Good, thank you. What is your actual M-Pesa name?
These are the ones, all of them. Send M-Pesa, then we see. I'm sure I can post
out.
Q&A. Send me 10 bob, 10 bob.
Thank you so much for joining us.
We can monetize this webinar.
You can monetize this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Poji.
For having me. Thank you for having me.
You wear so many different hats, but of course the work that we're talking about today is to do with distribution and monetization, which you sit squarely at with your work at MOOC specifically. So I think a lot of our attendees will know that MOOC is a social commerce platform where it's, I think, mostly started off as ticketing and then grew off into other things, including music, very popular choice to buy sort of event tickets from, quite a seamless operation that happens in that process. So could you please talk to us a little bit about MOOC and its beginnings and where it came from and what the need for it was and what kind of content people are buying from it?
Okay. I think that's a great place to start. I'll say, I think me and Wilfred read from the same script in the same book, because I liked when he said some of the solutions that are gonna fix the problems we have can't come from out there. We're gonna have to build those locally and start to rethink the solutions locally.
Right.
So actually, my background is in management and I've worked a lot with talent. And so I have been exposed to the event and music scene for a couple of years. But what happened in around 2013 is that my current business partner, Eric Thimba, and I started trying to explore new avenues to make money. And If you think about 2013, Safaricom was ripe. There's a lot of activity with M-Pesa. There's data is becoming faster and cheaper. And so for us, it was like, this is a great business opportunity to go online and just start to make some money from this online and convert some of the hassles to online. And we thought, because of how M-Pesa was growing and all these things, that it would be the easiest thing we ever did, start an online hustle. And trying to start to sell a product. At that point, we were trying to sell a women's heat patch, actually. And that's a story for another day. But we had a product we were trying to sell, and it was very, very difficult to do it online. We knew a lot of the consumers who we were targeting. We knew they were on Facebook, but we'd go on Facebook and then they'd say, okay, how do I pay? Then do you send them your phone number? How do we do that interaction? When the boda guy comes, does he call you? Does he call me? And so because we were very interested in the efficiency of the process, we started trying to look for systems that could help us do that. And everything we found had one piece, but not the other. It had a shop, but not payments. So it had payments, but it didn't allow you to connect to your existing audiences. And so we eventually sat with some developers, and the solution we were trying to build for ourselves is what then became this solution that people now use across the markets, which is called MOOC. And it's mostly because how much work it took us to build the payments and the infrastructure. It made more sense to open it up than to keep it as a closed product. And so this is something we developed 5 years ago. And the big idea was to monetize your audience online. One of the things you'll find if you look at Patricia, and she's given us a good breakdown of the micros and the nanos. We spent the last 10, 15 years in the age of social media building followers and building fans. And for me, I think the conversion for monetization happens when we can turn these fans to consumers, right? And that's part of what the influencer has helped a lot of brands to do, where you can take your existing fans, and because you know you share certain likes or preferences, because you live in the same area or you live in similar neighborhoods, you're able to influence them to convert and consume certain products or services. And that conversion of fans to consumers became then the first thing we were trying to do in 2015 when we launched our platform. Now, the two things that we found from research that people were looking for was tickets to events and music, especially based on the audience we were looking at, because a lot of people build tech for the now consumer, but tech is a very future seeing kind of thing. Right. And so for us, it was always, what are the things that the young guys, the 18-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, the 22-year-olds are looking for online, and how do we make those a little more accessible? And that's kind of how we segued into ticketing, how we started with music. And the demand obviously has grown, especially now in the pandemic and going forward. But those two at the time were the easiest kind of like clinchers in terms of merchants who had huge audiences already existing online. And that was the thing we wanted to convert. We wanted to take your existing audience and help you monetize them. Now, the concept of monetizing for brands and all that has come from social media. But for us, we were thinking of the person who makes the teas. Now you have people who do paintings, who have photography. You have guys who are making hats, who are printing t-shirts. How do you get all these people to be able to use their online audience to convert? And when Wilfred talked about working backwards, it's an idea I really like, where we've bought into this hype about 1 million followers or 100,000 views or 100,000 likes. But even if they were worth a bob each, you don't need that 100,000 bob to create this post. So what's the thing you need? And when you start to think of monetizing, how many people do you need buying your stuff for it to be financially viable for you to keep creating? And so outside of just accumulating the fans and the numbers of people who are coming and clicking, if people were to buy and you made a commission, how many of those people do you need to get to your $5,000 or to your $10,000? So for us, MOOC is actually short for Mukwanja, which is a Sheng word for money. And
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was That's what it was short for?
MOOC means money.
Good.
And so for us, a key part of it was how do we monetize our existing audience? And that's kind of how we began. And the diversity of the merchants we serve is based on that. Who are the people who have great online audiences they can quickly convert to consumers, and how can we help them make that easy and efficient for both them and their consumers?
It also now makes sense that your tagline is making commerce social. It's all kind of tying in together. And based on that and this kind of move that you've made from not just being about music and ticketing for events to other spheres, what would you say are the emerging trends you're seeing as MOOC in terms of what people are buying, and especially in this period, this 2020?
I think one of the big things, I can give you guys a quick, cheat over here, or in on something. We might need to change our tagline from making commerce social and change it to Discover Africa. And the reason for this is, even for us, when we look at our merchant backend and we see the breadth of people who are there, there's things I didn't think about. I've spoken to the leader of an SDA church somewhere who has 10 choirs, and all of them have albums they've created, and they have communities around the SDA church globally who are looking to consume this music but don't have a way to, right? And then I've spoken to music producers in Tanzania, right? Who are now working cross-border, because there's also a lot of collaboration when you move younger in the audiences. So you have a producer who is based in Tanzania, who has an artist in the UK and an artist in Kenya and an artist in Rwanda. They're all working together. They're all looking for one platform to monetize collectively. How can they split their money on one platform? How can they all view reports on one platform? So when you start to speak to these people, you realize, and one of the things when Patricia was talking about honoring yourself, I'd call it crafting your space, because there's a lot of people like you. And now with COVID, what we've realized is the world is flat. With this global playground, you can connect across the globe, as long as you work out time zones and where to do your boosts and that, you can connect with audiences from anywhere.
Right.
So for us, it's been, what are the things you like? For Patricia, one day it will be comedy, another day it will be music, another day it's a movie she's in, another day and connecting to all those multiple audiences is the same way we all are. Today I'm listening to music, and then in the afternoon I want to go watch a play, or I want to go watch a movie. And how do we satisfy that consumer need through all the stuff that we have? Because there's so much that we are creating, which is why we want to move to Discover Africa, because there's so much out there. You don't even know what you're looking for yet until you start scrolling. Then you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know we had improv comedy shows. I didn't know we had book launches. I didn't know we had dress up galas. And so because of just scrolling through, you're able to discover so much of what the continent has to offer. And then for us, what scaling out has taught us is that when you go into Uganda, when you go into Rwanda, you're finding similar pockets of creatives, but also audiences. So when I go there, I immediately see an audience, which I'm like, these guys would buy tickets to BYSS any minute, because they would completely connect to that idea. And so now what the internet has given us the opportunity to do is, let's turn this creative craft we have into content, and let's open it up for people to the same $5 or $3 that they've been subscribing to international platforms. They can give it to us, and we can split it in a more creator-friendly way. Because I saw a question in the chat from, I think it was Leon, who was saying, how do we get the audiences to move into this local platforms, considering there's a huge audience in the international world? And there's actually not a huge audience. The way Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube treat African creators, you can tell they don't have 10 million subscribers from here. They have maybe 100,000, maybe 1 million. If you look at African content, we're hitting 1 million, 2 million, but we have 49 million people in Kenya alone. If 50% of those are youth, it means you as a creator have access to 25 million Kenyans who can easily relate to what you're going through because they live in the exact same situation you do. So for me, if then we directed the 25 million people to a more affordable platform than $3 a month that they can pay for, I'm sure they'd be willing to.
Right.
They're the same people who will stop a Patricia or a Bien or somebody on the streets and be like, hey, napenda ngoma zako, I want to take a picture, a selfie. Those people exist countrywide. And because we are in this bubble, we've lived in a good world. Pre-COVID, I think things came to us so much, we didn't do too much exploring. But now if we go out to discover the audiences and to try to connect authentically with the audiences, there's so much in Africa, especially when we look at young people and creative stuff, music, theater, comedy, arts and digital arts. You're looking at this VR, like there's so much that's being created in Africa that we haven't even scratched the surface yet, and we're transacting $1 million. So I think the next 3 years could see us do Facebook type of numbers or YouTube type of numbers, because now the demand from the telcos or the services and everyone to bring data costs down because people are home. They can see what people are consuming. They are interested in getting people consuming more. And so I think there's a huge opportunity where we are now to like multiply what the Patricias and them have started already in terms of creating a market. There's an opportunity now for us to spread that, starting from a smaller community. Patricia will tell us what that's called, nano, or what,
nano, micro.
Whatever, the one with your 15 followers. If you and your 15 followers and you can move 15 people from this to this venue, or you can move 15 people to switch from drinking coffee to a different kind of tea, that already is the influence we are looking for. And then you move those 15 to 150, and then you move that to 1 million people, and you just keep growing that organically. And now is the time, I think.
I agree with you, Poji, and thank you so much for that overview, because it covers so many things that I think a lot of people have a lot of questions about. And going back to what you were saying about when, in the beginning, when you were setting off, I remember it was around the time that a lot of us in the sector were also lamenting this whole idea of, Silicon Savannah, there's all this buzz, M-Pesa, fintech, all these areas are growing, but I don't think that at the time we were seeing a translation into the creative sector. We're not seeing the same kind of like solutions happening at the same pace. So from that scenario, Poji, to one where you are transacting over 100 million shillings a year, because I think that's what $1 million translates to. What do you see as kind of future scenarios? Because you've talked about Facebook numbers. What's ideal for MOOC and for e-commerce and social commerce specifically going forward?
I think number one, the creative sector before today, I think now, because we've all gotten into this situation where we're at home and we're having to look at all kinds of scenarios and situations, the creative sector has kind of come up in the conversation quite a bit from the beginning of the year to now. But there's been very little support, funding, any of that goes towards specifically the creative sectors. Why? I would think it's because a lot of the people who have been putting in money have been putting in money for immediate return. And the creative sector here is driven by young people. And the young people are many. Our mean age is about 19.5, which means when you look at banks, when you look at all those people, we're not in their books yet. We're not a valuable consumer at 19.5. But if we look 5 years from now or 10 years from now, those 19-year-olds are the ones who will be 30 years old. They will be the maximum consumer. They'll be the biggest consumer globally in terms of content, in terms of that's the next consumer. America has saturated its audience. Europe has saturated its audience. So as they're moving here, I think there's a huge opportunity. I don't know yet whether our governments and our corporates have seen the shift, and I think it doesn't matter. My thought is that the brands need the content creators and the influencers more than the influencers need the brands. And so if there's ways that we can be able to finance or create models that can monetize the kind of content that we want to create as opposed to creating for brands, there's a huge opportunity for the kind of stories we can tell. There's a huge opportunity for the kind of value we can build. There's a huge, I mean, Nairobi is as metropolitan as it comes. So even our exposure growing up and the kind of things we're used to, we have French speaking people here. We have, like, we're exposed to so much that we can build things in scenarios that are not imaginable in other continents or in other regions. And so I think the time is now. I think the craft is going to be respected a lot more in terms of creatives. And creatives is broad. We have guys writing books. And if you look at how many books have come out in the last year, you start to appreciate that there's actually even a reading culture, which everybody said was dead. So if you go books, theater, music, art, there's so much that we can grow. And it starts with appreciating the value it has. And I think that's where this conversation comes. What is the value? What are the numbers? And for me, the numbers start with even just locally. I like when Wilfred said we have 50 cinemas and 50 million people. There's no way we can send all the guys to cinemas. So what's the new way to get content to these people directly? And that's what Kenyans are known for. We are the innovators for Africa.
We are.
This is our time to collectively innovate and create what that solution looks like.
Thanks, Boji. I think actually this would be a really good point at which to open up this discussion to the floor so we can go into a Q&A and to borrow from what you were just talking about and the question from Leon Omondi via Facebook for you, Wilfred. Just based on what you were just saying right now, Boji, about numbers, about platforms. Leon was asking Wilfred that since international services, global ones, you've got your Netflix and the rest of them, are so easily accessible, how do you incentivize our domestic market to access the kind of content that you have up on places like Bumi Central, so local platforms?
Yeah, so the thing about audiences being able to access the content locally is that it's not available anywhere else. So, a good example is Softy. It's not yet available on Netflix or any other place. So the only choice they have is really to go to a cinema or Bumi Central. And hence why, even in terms of marketing, I think that's the best marketing tool for us. When people discover content and they discover the platform that they can watch it on, then there as well they will start discovering the other content that is similar. And the whole idea is also curation. When you create content that is biased towards Africa, then you have no choice knowing that, but to know that there's a place where you belong. If you take your content to Amazon, it's an ocean. Once you drop it there, it's really, people might discover it if more people watch it, because their algorithms then work that way. But if you don't push, you don't do a marketing campaign, no one will ever discover your content there, and it will be there 5 years not making anything.
Okay. Thank you, Wilfred. I'll take another question from the floor. This one's from Nyambura Githongo. For you, Patricia Kihoro, come back. Oji. Patricia, Nyambura is asking, in the event of a dispute with a client, what mechanisms exist to protect you as the influencer or content creator? Yeah. And do you feel that your work and ideas are safe in that context, so to speak?
So let me answer from the back about ideas and content being safe. One of the things I've come to learn and sort of start to put my foot down on is this thing where brands will reach out to you and then ask you for a content proposal, right? So it's kind of like pitching for ad agencies where they want you to, ideate, come up with this concept for their product or service or whatever. Do the ideas, break it down, how you will post, what the ideas will be about, what you will talk about. So you're already doing work, right?
Yeah.
I feel like they've gotten to a point where they don't really value the ideation process of a concept, right? So they will have you do that work, have you submit the proposal, and then tell you, we'll let you know if we'll go with you. So you've already spent hours, right? Man hours creating this idea, which is where most of the work is. Creating the content and posting is sort of part 2 and part 3. And part 2 is, creating the content is also, it can be difficult, but part 3, which is just publishing the post, is the simplest. All you have to do is press a button. But I feel like a lot of people still feel like, no, posting is the work. So they'll tell you, no, just do, we'll let you know when to post. We'll let you know when we'll approve. We'll let you know when you can go ahead. And I've gotten to a point where, sometimes you'll see your idea, they'll tell you, oh, we opted to go with somebody else. And then you see somebody else executing your ideas.
Because you did the ideation.
Because you did the ideation.
And concept development.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's a thing, because influencer marketing and content creation is such a new thing that we're all sort of trying to figure out and craft what the systems look like, or, what the guidelines should be. It's something that, for me, I've had to get to a point where I'm like, you know what, this doesn't work for me. This thing of slaving through the night, burning the midnight oil to come up with a proposal that may or may not be approved doesn't work for me. No. So if you want me to ideate something for you, you will either pay a deposit, right? Or you will send me a contract where you're guaranteeing me this work, because the reason you came to me in the first place is because you like my work. And you can see how I work. You ask me for a profile, for a rate card, I'll give you all those things. There's links to my work. You can see, right? There's no need for an audition. And I was actually watching Aaron Rimbui's CTA episodes, and today, episode 22, he was talking about, him as Aaron Rimbui, who has played for years and years, being asked to audition or to put together a proposal to book a space. And in that space, videos of his gigs are playing. So there's this thing where not only do you not feel valued, but they also they'll try and do this thing where they diminish you so that you feel like you're desperate for this work. And while I have to say that it's such a privilege to get to do this work, which we love and enjoy and get paid for it, there has to be a mutual respect, right? And so I've gotten to a point now where if you ask me for a proposal, it's because you know of the kind of work that I will do. I'll give you a call and say, I'm thinking maybe going in this direction. If you're cool with it, please send a contract through. And the contract, whether it's yours or whether it's mine, because I've also learned that I need to have my own contract that protects me, because most brands, most corporations are protecting themselves. You know what I mean? So when they send you a contract, it's not so that you can also feel like you're protected. It is so that they can cover themselves. So you have to learn that you create your own contract, or have somebody on hand who can help you decipher a contract, so that one, if they're sending you an NDA, you can send them an NDA back, where you say, fine, here's a proposal. We have this guarantee of we'll get to this point, but in the case that you do not use my proposal or my concept or my idea, you will never think about it again. Let me not see somebody trying to create or to do or to execute something of that sort. Two, because it feels like, for me, the ideation is like 90% of the work that I do. It's the idea. It's the idea that brings your brand to life. That costs money.
Yes.
And so you have to pay for that, because it's almost like a consultation. It's a consultancy gig. They're consulting with you to help them tell a story around their brand or their product. And that is something that they should value. And if you can pay an ad agency to come up with a concept, me, who is just little old me, Patricia, is doing the work that, I'm thinking about this content, I'm shooting it myself, I'm editing it myself, I am scripting it myself, like everything that most content creators do, they do themselves. It's something that they learn, they put in the hours to learn. When I was telling you that I can be up till 3-4 in the morning watching YouTube videos and tutorials, because this world of creation fascinates me. As much as it's something that I love to do, I've learned also to attach value to it. It's almost like going to school.
Yes,
I've
yes.
put in the hours to learn this thing and to make sure that I do the best of my ability to present your brand or product in the best light possible. And I know that when a brand associates with me, they're doing it so that they can legitimize themselves, right? And that is of value. So even me, I've had to give myself pep talks and be like, but Patricia, you are valuable. Like, you know? And so in protecting yourself is also like now with the contracts and having the law on your side and understanding that they can protect themselves and you can do the same as well. Yeah. Yes.
And speaking of that value, there's just one follow-up question for you, Patricia, from Ongere, asking what are the tools that you use to track the audience reach of what you're doing, of your campaigns or the engagement?
Right. So all these platforms that we're on, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, on the back end, they provide you with metrics that you can use to sort of just like evaluate your reach, your engagement, your impressions. All these platforms offer them. Before, you used to have to like look for an app that will then tell you these are the impressions, or websites that did that. But over the years, the actual apps themselves, the platforms themselves have incorporated them. So usually when we're doing our reports as content creators, we just go to the back end of Instagram and it gives you all the metrics. It will tell you this number of people from this country, Azerbaijan, you have 14 people who view this content. So it's very, they break it down, even to people who save your content. How many people shared it? How many people replied to it? All these metrics are provided by the platforms that we're on. So you don't really need to look for anything external. They're provided. Even YouTube, it's just so broken down. I still discover metrics today that I didn't know YouTube is offering me. And I'm like, oh, so you are telling me you can tell me the language this person who like, it's the provide them. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Asante, Patricia, parting shot from Patricia? I had to do that.
A parting shot, I think I would say, I mean, I see some questions here, but I mean, you can definitely reach out to me and I'll speak to you about that. But I would say that the influencer space, a lot of people will say, oh, but it feels so saturated and there's too many people. It's not. Every voice is valid. Every single voice is valid. If you decide today, Podgy, that you want to be a YouTube star, you can do it. You know, Washuka, if you decide today that you just want to get onto Instagram or TikTok, TikTok, I've tried, I can't.
It's actually too much work because I look at the content all of you post and it's a lot of work.
I have accepted. I am leaving the bracket of youth in a month. So I have accepted. I turned 35 in exactly a month. So it's okay. TikTok imenishinda. But you can find, even if it's one platform, because also you don't need to be on all. Don't think that because now you want to start a YouTube channel, so now I have to start an Instagram page and Facebook. And no, you can pick one. You can use your voice, and please believe that your voice is valid. Whatever you have to share is valid, and there will be people to consume it. And if you want to do this in an intentional way, just know that consistency, quality, and authenticity are the things that you need, and you can grow as long as you also remember the purpose, why you're there in the first place. If you're there to make money, it's fine. Whatever purpose you have is also valid. If you're there because you want to serve others, fine. If you want to share information, fine. As long as you remember what your purpose is in the moments of doubt, because that's the thing that will keep you going.
Thank you, Patricia. Podgy, have you given up on TikTok?
I didn't even start. This is how I know that my bracket exit was sooner than necessary. Yeah, I watch what people have sent to me already.
Right.
The best of TikTok is what I consume.
Your the platform MOOC,
yes,
and commerce, and it being social, and the realities of this year, and how so many more people are doing things online that they didn't even imagine actually that they would ever do online, right? What has 2020 looked like for social commerce, and what are you predicting going forward? What's the biggest thing you've learned also during this downtime in terms of your business model?
It's a good question, actually. Well, I would say this, when we began in 2015, we were going around preaching to everybody about this digital migration. Build your audience online, start to do transactions online, use that data to be able to build a transaction history and go to banks and go to these people. But we were preaching, nothing, everybody was like, oh, it sounds good, but I already have this shop. I'm already working with so-and-so. I already have this campaign. And what this year has done is that it's made the kind of tech and the kind of things that we've been preaching a necessity now. It's no longer a nice to have. If you don't have a digital presence, if you don't understand your audience, if you're not able to transact offline, and when I say offline, I mean out of your shop and now in the spheres of people are not coming to the mall, you will not survive. And so there's a lot of drive towards digital. The problem is it's new waters. It's not the same land people are used to. It's very expensive to navigate. There's a lot of sharks. There's a lot of competition. If you don't know what you're doing, you could lose a lot of money. And so I think the biggest opportunity that we have at the position where we are is that the last 5 years have been a great foundation, but we are able to now lead thousands more businesses to the online space. We understand some of the needs. This year has taught us that you could build your event empire for life, and then one day events are pulled off in 2 days and you have to start to rethink. So sitting with the developers, sitting with the organizers, sitting with the musicians, there's a lot of rethinking that has had to happen. And that thinking is going to be long-term. I think the innovations that come will be great, but we're moving into a time now where we can build together, starting to erase some of the numbers we know. So I'm of this belief that the numbers we've been taught to look at are all lies. So forget about your 1 million followers, forget about the 10,000 likes, and start to see how many of this do I actually convert? Is it 1%? Is it 2%? Is it 5%? And then start to grow that number. If you have 50 people, if you are 100 people, that's enough for you to make your rent every month. If you can collect 2 bob, 5 bob, 10 bob a day or a week, you can make this money. So I think it's going to call for us to first look inwards a lot. We're going to start to respect the opportunity that exists throughout our country. So we're going to see Patricia influencing some hotel in Kitale somewhere, and some influencer from somewhere in Marsabit becoming big. We're going to start to see our world expanding a little bit more than we're used to, but it's all for the better. We've had a great head start, especially as Kenya, and as the kind of youth and the education and the facilities that are available, the schools, the training. So I think training more young people, creating more informed creatives, making sure they know what's happening, making sure they have the back-end support in terms of accounting and legal and copyrights, because all these things come, once you start to make money, if you didn't get the right copyrights, all that money will disappear. So there's this back-end information that needs to all come together. And I think because we've had time to sit back and slow down our pace and realize what is valuable and what we have in our hands, the next 3-4 years is going to be transformative for the creative sector. And I think tech plays a very big role. Education plays a very big role. And so putting all these things together and collaborating to create the ecosystems that we need between us and the creators. So I can't just create a thing to compete with YouTube. I need to sit with Patricia and say, based on the kind of money you're currently making, if you were to have a platform that worked better for you, what would that look like? What would you need? Do you need reports? Do you need money directly in your M-Pesa? Do you need something that can help you access loans to be able to buy equipment or to be able to hire a team? So what are the things that these platforms need to provide for the creatives, and how do we build that so that then that makes us more competitive than these other existing platforms? But the opportunity is great, and collaboration has to be a big part of it. So don't look at us and compare us to, hey, how come you don't give me this like iTunes? But how do we build that thing together so that 4 or 5 years from now, the creators are able to benefit immensely from the solutions we have locally?
Okay, thank you, Poji. A kind of final follow-up to that, just based on what you've just shared. Are you finding joy with local investment?
Not really. And so what has actually happened is in our quest to find investment for ourselves, we've had to look at slightly larger opportunities to be able to find investment, not just for ourselves, but also for the merchants who trade through us. Because we realize that it's not a problem we're going through. Even if I got money and I can start running, the event organizers have had 8 months of a slump. The artists haven't done shows. Some of the other creatives who use the platform haven't had business for 8 months. So how do we restart as a collective? And I mean, one of the benefits we have is that online gives us a lot of data. So using that data, we're trying to make this creative economy. And I'm going to shout out the team at Hiva because we're working very closely with them to build something specifically for creatives around investment and being able to access money based on your transactions online. So the opportunity is there, but it's not been an easy road to find money for creatives and for creative platforms. But that hopefully is going to change. We're still waiting for our amen moment of 2020. It's coming. We have a couple more days. Yeah, it's coming.
It will come. Thank you so much, Poji. And thanks for letting us know about a potential collaboration with Hiva Fund, who of course do really fantastic work in kind of, making financing in our sector accessible in very many forms.
Right.
Wilfred.
Yes.
Parting shot and also question. I'm a filmmaker. I brought you a wonderful film. It's a documentary. How much of what you're making in terms of percentage am I taking home?
Okay, so so it really depends on in terms of the percentages that we agree on, because we are currently at premium stage, we are almost like replacing the theater. So if we put in the marketing budget ourselves, then it's at a 50-50 revenue share.
Okay.
If you're also doing the pushing, then we can negotiate on the percentages. But as I said, it's completely up to you, the vendor, to decide. And it's also non-exclusive. You can decide to publish it on 5 different platforms.
Right.
So it really depends up to you. Yeah.
So I'm on Netflix, I'm on Showmax, I'm on Bumi Central. I can be okay.
Yeah, but at the premium window, it's, basically the way it works out is you have windows. So you have theatrical, you have TVOD, and then you have either ad-driven or SVOD. SVOD is where Netflix is. So of course, once you go down one tier, it's very hard to come back up one tier. So it's like you can't come from Netflix to theater. So you really have to be careful how do you decide to distribute your film or how you want to release your film.
Okay. Well, all the best with the platform. I'm sure it's going to grow exponentially. It's only been a few months, and I'm sure you're all learning quite a lot. Everyone, check them out online. And asante sana, Poji, for joining us for this conversation. Thank you so much, Wilfred. Thank you so much, Patricia. I know we're slightly over time. I apologize about that. And Judy Ogana will come back on now to close this conversation. Thank you so much to all 3 panelists for taking the time to share everything about what you're doing with us. That was a really lovely conversation for me to have, and I've learned an incredible amount of information actually during this session. Asanteni sana. Over to you, Judy.
Asante, thank you. And yeah, what a rich conversation we've had. I think we can all agree that we've learned a lot. So as we wrap up this session, and on behalf of all the partners, we would obviously like to really thank our panelists, Poji Rosso, Patricia Kahoro, and Wilfred Kiumi, for their insightful, inspiring contribution in the digital space. The opportunities, the challenges that they go through, and also for being very candid and open with us about their process. We've heard about market strategies and positioning, the value of being an early adopter. I have not heard of, what was that? Webfluencer. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. The importance of building partnerships with clients, I think that's on all levels, it's really important. I liked what Patricia was saying about finding your unique sweet spot, and what Mook was saying about crafting your own space, and turning your fans into consumers. I mean, a resource already right there that you can be able to turn around and monetize from them. The value of innovation and new ways of getting content directly to customers has obviously come out as an important aspect of this. I think we touched on securing your content and ideas, and that is a big issue, I think, especially with the creative industries and the creative sector. So how we can crack how to secure our ideas, because that's where our creativity is really critical and important. And so many other things. I'm so happy to know what MOOC actually stands for or means. Mukwanja, did you say? So we've learned so much, and we can't really thank our panelists enough for their insightful and interesting take on what they're doing and what they're
Oh dear, I think we lost Judy. Poleni sana. I think that's Thursday's saying, but it is time.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for coming to this conversation. And it will be posted on the Alliance Française YouTube page. If you want to go back and maybe listen back to some things that are.
Can you hear me now? I just want
Yes.
to quickly thank Washuka.
Thank you.
So bomb, so wonderful, so wow, so great.
Panyokes.
You can see Patricia's improv skills coming to use.
Right?
This
is
for Judy's
comedy. Thank you, Judy. Asanteni.
Sorry, I got offline somehow,
No
but
worries.
asanteni sana.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for having us. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.